Hello, today we will discuss FinFET, which is improved version of MOSFET, and we will do it by analyzing scientific articles sub 50 nanometer p-channel FinFET by researchers Huang and others. So let's begin. As we know, traditional MOSFET is planar and it is 2D device, but FinFET, which is a 3D device, is not planar, but three-dimensional, and it has some fins around it. So what are those fins? Fins are just those parts highlighted here, and those are used for a couple of reasons, which suppressed the short channel effect. Short channel effect is when the channel length is in the same order as depletion layer of width of source and drain junctions. In general, channel length should be greater than sum of those widths of source and drain. But when it's not, we see that off-state current, which is the current when the transistor is off, but the current is present, is increased, and also channel length modulation is increased. So those two features are highly undesirable, so we need to reduce it. So to reduce those features, we need to suppress short channel effect. And effectively, we will reduce off-state current and the channel length modulation. Also, FinFET has a very high gain and a very high transconductance parameter, which is GM or output current per input voltage. And finally, it can be used to scale down CMOS well beyond 50 nanometers, effectively reduce cost and increase efficiency. In this particular example, measurements were done on 45 nanometer gate length p-channel FinFET at saturation drain current 820 microamps, at gate source and drain source voltage of 1.2 volts and oxide layer thickness of 2.5 nanometers. And the device showed good performance down to 80 nanometers. Particularly, it showed excellent short channel behavior. And also, FinFET structure can work down to 10 nanometers of gate length. And if it's done, then researchers will be able to scale down MOSFET well beyond 50 nanometers. So let's briefly discuss fabrication of this transistor. The first step is SI fin formation, which is silicon fin. As you can see, it's here. 100 nanometer silicon was thinned to 50 nanometers. The second step is source and drain formations. Because it is a p-type material, boron was used as an acceptor atom. And as a semiconductor, not only silicon, but germanium was used as well, with concentration 50 per 85 silicon. So out of 100, we have 15 germanium and 85 silicon. The third step is nitride space formation, which, as you can see, is this space, and its maximum length is, as you can see, 18 nanometers approximately. And the final step is oxide gate formation, which had final thickness ranged from 10 to 120 nanometers. Discussing device fabrication, let us discuss device performance. In figure 7, we see that steepness of both linear and saturation regions are observed. At a relatively thick gate oxide length, which is 2.5 nanometers. Despite being very thick, FinFET showed a very high drive current and good short channel behavior down to those points, which correspond to approximately 18 to 19 nanoamperes of gate length, which is very advantageous result because generally oxide scaling is one of the limiting factors in conventional MOSFET scaling, because when we decrease oxide layer thickness, leakage current is increased, which is highly undesirable. After that, another experiment was conducted on this transistor to observe its behavior with changing gate source voltage. The data obtained in this experiment closely matched with two-dimensional device simulations, which even assumed a simple and a uniformly doped channel region. Figure 11 shows comparison between experimental and simulation data on both on-state and off-state current. On-state current is current which flows when the transistor is on, and off-state current is current which flows when the transistor is off. So in ideal case, off-state current should be 0, but in real life we see that it's around at 10 to the power minus 11 amperes, which is negligibly small and approximated to 0. And if we make transistor on, so decrease gate source voltage, we see that comparison between experimental and simulation data is very small. So it is a good result because the comparison is matched. Same simulation model on drain source current versus gate source voltage, again matched with experimental data. But in this case, gate length was reduced to 10 nanometers, oxide thickness was scaled down to 1.2 nanometers, and silicon fin thickness was scaled down to 7 nanometers. But leakage current was still relatively low compared to 700 microamps, and again minimal short channel effects were observed. But it should be noted that 4.6 nanoamperes is still very large compared to previous leakage current value, which was around 1 to 1 multiplied by 10 to the minus 11. So it has increased by a factor of 100, but it is still relatively negligible compared to 700 microamps. So this feature again highlighted excellent short channel behavior of this particular FinFET structure. To conclude, sub 50 nanometer p-channel FinFET were successfully manufactured and fabricated. The device exhibit high drive current, 820 microamps at relatively low voltage, which is 1.2 volts, and shows good performance down to gate length of 80 nanometer and oxide thickness of 2.5 nanometers. At those parameters, the device exhibits excellent short channel effects and maintains matching between experimental and simulation results. So, FinFET can be considered as an attractive successor of MOSFET. In general, the paper was educational and explanatory. There were minimal mismatch between simulation and experiment results, so the experiment results can be generalized and used for other FinFET devices. But some parts of the paper could have been written better. For example, the introduction was too small. The concept of FinFET was introduced, but the introductory part was not sufficiently explanatory, and the difference between FinFET and MOSFET were not listed. So I had to look at the differences from other sources. Also, the conclusion was too small, and the advantages of FinFET over MOSFET was not listed. Moreover, the unit of ampere was written as amperes per meter instead of just amps. But as we know, ampere per meter is SI unit of magnetic field strength or magnetic field intensity, which is denoted as H. It might have been a printing mistake, but anyway, it was a mistake. But most importantly, the discussion on fabrication process was too vague and highly relied on the references. The reader who was not familiar with the references could not understand the fabrication process just from the article. So it could have been written more clearly and in a better way. Otherwise, the paper was educational, explanatory, and properly written, apart from those minor mistakes.